7 friends were sitting under a tree, talking about what they were afraid of. I'm afraid of snakes. They move in zigzags. I'm afraid of foxes. They turn into ghosts. I'm afraid of bats. They fly at night. I'm afraid of spiders. They make sticky webs. I'm afraid of caterpillars. They hide under leaves. I'm afraid of ants. They travel in long trails. Mr. Pine. Mr. Pine? Mr. Pine. What are you afraid of? Mr. Pine relaxed, resting his chin on a hand. I am afraid of nothing. Nothing? You must be afraid of something. Aren't you afraid of snakes? If I find a snake, I'll wrap it round my head to keep me warm. Aren't you afraid of, foxes? If a fox turns into a ghost, I'll use it as my slave. Aren't you afraid of bats? I'll catch a bat and I'll tie it to a stick and use it as an umbrella. Aren't you afraid of spiders? I take its sticky web and I mix it with rice to make delicious natto. Aren't you afraid of caterpillars? I'll tie a caterpillar to a twig and use it as a toothbrush. Aren't you afraid of ants? I take a handful and I sprinkle them on my food instead of sesame. Mr. Pine, you must be afraid of something. Mr. Pine thought, well, I am afraid. I am afraid of Manju. Manju? What kind of creature is Manju, Mr. Pine? Manju is not a creature. Manju are sweet, sticky buns. Oh, I am afraid. Mr. Pine ran in through the paper door. He lay down on his futon. He hid himself under the coverings. I am afraid of Manju. The 6 other friends thought, let's play a trick. They went to the store, the Manju store. They bought Manju. Red and white Manju, buckwheat Manju, sake Manju, all sorts of Manju. Then they came back and placed a tray of Manju silently beside the futon. They closed the paper door and waited outside. Finally they heard, oh no, Manju, I am afraid. Oh, red and white Manju, sake Manju, buckwheat Manju. What's strange? They opened the paper door, went inside to see Mr. Pine sitting up, eating the last of the Manju. But Mr. Pine, aren't you afraid of Manju? Oh no, said Mr. Pine, I forgot. What are you afraid of then, Mr. Pine? I would be afraid of a nice cup of tea? This story, Manju, was told to me by a Japanese woman called Satomi Endo. Thank you, Satomi. I'm telling it to you from my back garden today, Thursday, the 25th of June, 2020. And it is a breath of fresh air.